Tonight on EWTN Live, we'll learn how the Society of St. Edmund is on a mission to fight poverty, homelessness, and hunger in the Deep South. So please stay with us. Thank you very much and welcome. I'm Father Mitch, Pacwa, and welcome to EWTN Live, where we bring you guests from all over the world. Before we get to our guests tonight, I want to mention that today is the feast of Saint Mary Magdalene. She comes from the town of Magdala. That's why a lot of people get confused of having her as the sister of Martha and Lazarus. They're from up in Bethany, or down in Bethany, down south by Jerusalem. Magdala is on the Sea of Galilee. But she followed Christ, and she's one of the few disciples that stayed faithful to him all the way to the cross and stood there with our Blessed Mother and St. John and Our Lady's sister named Mary. And that's who you got there. Now, the other thing that she's really famous for is what the fathers call that she is he apostoli tois apostolos. She is the female apostle to the other apostles, the men apostles, because she was the one in her fidelity had gone to the tomb not looking for the risen Jesus. She was looking for a dead body to anoint, but she found Jesus alive. Rather, he found her and told her to take that good news from her to the apostles, from the apostles to us, and we are to continue her mission of bringing the good news that Jesus Christ has defeated death. Death is God's enemy, and Jesus is the one who defeats death. So we too are to bring the good news of his resurrection to our world today. Now, we have a guest tonight who is the executive director of a mission society that ministers to poverty-stricken people in the Black Belt region of Alabama and in Louisiana, in New Orleans. Their motto is, do the best we can with what little we have to serve those most in need. And they've been embodying the corporal works of mercy found in Matthew chapter 25 for 7 to 8 years now, with the help of countless lay volunteers. So please welcome Mr. Chad McEachern. Chad, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, I've certainly had guests that come from long distances, but you just came down from Selma.
Yes.
Right? So good to have you up here in Birmingham. It's not that far. What, about two and a half hours?
Mm-hmm. A little over 2 hours.
Yeah. And I mentioned to everybody, this is called the Black Belt.
Yes.
Why is this? Is this a big karate area?
No, it's because of the soil, the rich soil in that area.
Yeah, it's a dark black soil
yes.
from the forests that have been there
Correct.
in the past.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's good to folks to understand that. And it's had been heavily agricultural.
Yes.
What's the economy like now in Selma?
Abysmal.
Yeah.
That's been one of our big fights. The Edmundites arrived in Selma in 1937 at the invitation of Pope Pius XI. And the purpose of their moving to Selma was to evangelize. And what Father Casey found and Father Perro found back in 1937 was you can't evangelize when people are starving to death in the streets. And the Edmundite missions were born out of their concern and compassion way back then, and they started giving out sandwiches and helping with other provisions out the back door of the current missions house. And so from that day, we have been serving the corporal needs: food, clothing, shelter, education, and the like.
And so folks can also understand the 1930s in the United States were a time in which the Ku Klux Klan
Yes.
was very, very rampant. And it wasn't as big in the South as it was up north. In Connecticut, Indiana, the state of Oregon, and a lot of other places had much larger Klan organizations, but what they had in common was an anti-African American mentality. They were trying to enforce the Jim Crow laws that had been opened up by the Supreme Court decision in the 1890s, Plessy versus Ferguson. And they were also very anti-Catholic.
Very much so.
So that Father Casey and the first Edmundites there, they were dealing with a double whammy
Yes.
of being Catholics, sent by the Pope,
Right.
was really bad, and they're working in the African American community.
Yes.
How did they run into trouble with that?
Yes. And in fact, that's one of the very interesting things about the missions, is that while adversity has come throughout our history in the South, in the Black Belt, and particularly in Selma, the Edmundites have never wavered in their commitment for justice. And the gospel message has always been front and center. In fact, in the early 60s and mid-60s, there were oftentimes notes put up on the chapel door that said, "The KKK is watching you." And so, the churches there were under great threat and peril, and the Edmundites never wavered in that in that fear. They kept persevering and moving forward to this day. Continue to do that work.
And, and want to also tip a hat to others who came to work, the Josephites
Yes.
and a variety of other communities that came to work in the South
Yes.
among African Americans at a time of great tension.
That's right.
But they just we're here to serve Christ.
Right, right. In the South in particular, the Catholic population is very small. And in Selma, we're a very small parish of about 200 families. And yet, we are serving a huge population in the city of Selma and throughout the Black Belt region, in 7 counties and in New Orleans. So it's amazing that as a Catholic presence, we continue and persevere, and we care for those who are in need regardless of color, race,
Right.
any of those types of religion.
None of that
Our
matters.
door is open. The door is always open.
Now, how's the unemployment issue in that area?
The unemployment in the city of Selma itself is about 30%.
30%.
30%.
Because the government keeps saying that there's only about 5% unemployment,
No,
but
No.
not in Selma.
not in Selma. And with the climate, with the clientele that we serve, the unemployment would be about 72%. So the numbers are staggering. 60% of our children live under the poverty level, which is also to wrap your mind around that number is inconceivable, really.
What's again the statistic of how many are under the poverty level?
Children, 60%.
60%.
Mm-hmm.
And, how are the schools?
The schools are not well funded, and they're very divided between white and black, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. Our dropout rate is about 45%.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of issues.
Birmingham too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of issues in that, but the educational component is so important, but it's very hard to break that cycle often.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, there's high unemployment, and of course high poverty.
Yes.
And the government just can't. They can help people, but that doesn't give you an ongoing sustaining of life.
No. We
coasting.
We receive no federal funding, so our missions
The
are run.
Edmundites or
Edmundite
Selma?
missions, the Edmundite missions
Edmundite
itself.
missions.
So all of our work is funded through the thousands of donors throughout the United States,
Yeah.
and so that that's how we operate 365 days a year.
Well, overall, that'll give you more freedom if you don't have the government help.
True.
We have a little clip about the Edmundites helping people every day. So let's just take a look at this one little example.
I love this place. I love the people. My mother died. My stepfather and I didn't see eye to eye, and I moved. I just abruptly left home. I had exhausted all my resources, and somebody reminded me, say, hey, they serve food at the Bosco. And so I got up and I went. And I've been coming ever since. You come here, and it's such a beautiful place, and you're treated so great that you always got to come back. When I came here, I was expecting soup kitchen, but what I found was a family atmosphere. I mean, they give people who are down a dignity. You know, they could be down and realize, hey, that's a human thing to get down. And Bosco's here, hey, you somebody. We know you're somebody, because we're here to serve you and make you feel like somebody. Even people on the streets have dignity. And they feel guilty about always having to ask, having to beg. But when they come through that door, they know they don't have to ask nothing. Man, it goes a long ways in making them come back. And the strength of self will come from this type of attitude. I assure you that. I assure you. If you take inventory of the successes, if you take inventory and understand the accountability factor in terms of the success, in terms of helping individuals help themselves, even not just in filling their stomach, taking away the thing of hunger, but giving them the dignity and maintaining their dignity. Without this place, we'd have a lot of tragedy in this community. We have a lot of hungry kids, a lot of hungry moms, a lot of hungry dads. This is one of the jewels that not many people know about in my city. As a human being, I love them. And as a person who wants to seek success, we need them.
One of the striking elements of what he says is the gift of dignity being respected. He already has his dignity. He seems like a very dignified man, but the gift is that his dignity is respected. How do y'all do that?
One of the things I think at Bosco itself is...
What is Bosco?
Bosco's our nutrition center, so it's the soup kitchen, if you will. And one of the things that we do is that the plate is never just pushed to the individual to take, but it's handed to them. And you speak to them and you wish them a good evening. We welcome them in. There's no judgment who comes through that door, why they're there. Folks come for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's out of loneliness, sometimes obviously for hunger, or a place that's cool, a place that's welcoming, and a place that that they know they're loved. There's a funny story about this little boy who came into Bosco, and he went up to the juice machine. And the juice machine, we had just gotten it in, and he kept pushing to get the juice to come out. And there was no juice, there was just water. And he came back to me and he says, Mr. Chad, are we broke? And I said, what do you mean, are we broke? And he said, the juice machine isn't working. And I said, no, we're not turning it on for lunch, but it'll be on for dinner. But as I went home that night, it was, are we broke? There was a real sense of ownership in the mission.
Right, that
and
he
that,
felt
that he
this
felt,
is us.
This is us. This isn't just me and you. That there's a real sense of caring and compassion, and that we're in this together. And I think that's what, this is a true ministry that allows us, particularly as a Catholic, to really live out the gospel message. I mean, we're compelled to do this. We're not there because it's fun, but by mandate of the gospel.
Yeah, and I think it's important that people understand it's not like people are being just kept out of a particular factory. There's no factory to work in.
There's no factory to work in.
Yeah.
And that is one of the one of our challenges, certainly, in the missions as we try to move folks from reliance to self-reliance. And it's how do we do that? Because even if we're training and educating and equipping folks with certain skills, where do they go? And what type of industry might they be able to find gainful employment? And right now, we don't have that.
Yeah, and so that's just something that has not been generated, and you know, it's not as if the folks could even pull. Come on, kids, we'll put on a play. You know,
Right,
I mean, it's,
right.
There's nothing to work with.
Right.
In the community.
Right, and that's why the missions, you know, if you speak to folks, they'll always say, if you want to get something done in this city, go to the missions, because we're able to get things done. We have great folks that are involved with us, and we can make things happen.
Do you have a good relationship with the city government?
Yes. Very good. In fact, Mayor Evans was a Bosco boy, affectionately known, and was raised, if you will, through the missions, and is now the mayor of Selma. And
so that's had, you know, a really good effect on his life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a wonderful working relationship.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
That's good. So, what is the direction then you see the Bosco Center moving in?
It's multifaceted. I mean, the Bosco Center is just one program within the missions. We have Senior Day program.
What does that mean?
Senior Day, it's a Senior Day activity program for those 55 and older.
Oh, okay.
So maybe you could come and join for a day if you'd like.
Yeah. I fit.
You know?
You know, actually, let me just let anybody out there know that I enjoyed turning 55. I went down to IHOP to get my first senior citizen breakfast special. So,
well, we'll give you a free breakfast too.
Oh,
so
good.
Come on over. Yeah.
IHOP didn't even do that.
But so it's a senior program where we have about 60 seniors that come every day, and they do devotion and prayer. They have a meal together. They do activities, exercise. So a lot of just keeping folks mentally and physically fit. We do outreach for folks that are in need of utility assistance. I think one of
By
the
utilities, you mean?
electric, gas,
Yes.
Transportation. They need funds to get to a dialysis appointment.
Well, you
variety
get
of
like
different
bus
things.
tokens to get on the bus to
No,
go?
we have no public transportation.
So they're just dependent on.
So we're trying, you know, folks will try to say, well, I have a friend who will take me, but it's $15. So if, you know, we could get $15, I can get to this appointment or that appointment. And so we try to help facilitate those types of things. It's amazing that folks are so close to the edge every day. We had a family, a young woman who brought her daughter home who'd been in the hospital for 6 months because she was premature at birth and her lungs weren't fully developed. So when she came home, she had to be on 24-hour oxygen. And you know, her disconnect power bill was there. And quite honestly, if her power had been turned off, her daughter would have died.
Right.
And so we try to step in, you know, to do that in a variety of ways, whether it's that type of a situation or, you know, helping to expand a doorway so that a senior can come home from a rehab stint or whatever, widening the doors so that or putting in a ramp so that, you know, they have access to their home again and some freedom. It's amazing, you know, that widening a door to a bathroom allows somebody the dignity of not crawling to the commode.
Yeah, right.
You know, and they can wheel themselves in, and just these types of things, or the dignity of a little boy who, this little young man, TJ, I noticed he wasn't in school, and I said to his mom, I said, you know, how come TJ's not in school today? And she said, oh, he won't go. He was in kindergarten. And I said, well, what's the matter? And she said, the kids were picking on him. And I said, well, for what? Because his pants were too short. She couldn't afford a new uniform. The school kids all use uniform. So it was a hand-me-down, and it came up to, you know, high waters.
Floodplain.
And the kids all picked on him. And it was just a different level of poor because no one was wealthy in this school. It was just he was even more poor
than the other poor kids.
Jeez. And so it was, you just run into those types of situations over and over and over again. And you get a lot of false things where people say, well, they must be getting food stamps, they can do this. And if you think about it, when you do food stamps, it's actually very minimal, particularly here in the South. And we ask a family of 4 to live on a little over $5 a day. So if you went to Subway.
That's not $5 per person.
No.
That's $5
for the family.
Per 4 people.
So it's like $1.44.
So it's $1.25 each.
Right, basically. And so if you were to go buy when they had the $5 footlongs at Subway, you could buy one and split it up into 4 pieces, and that's what you could eat for the rest of the day.
That's all you'd have.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's, it's hard for folks who live in poverty areas in some of the big cities to imagine being that poor.
Right.
In the United States.
We have families living on porches, and they move from one porch to another or to an abandoned house, which also impacts kids staying in school because their families are jumping from school district area for the lower elementary grades.
And then also having an address that you can register your child with.
So we have a lot of what are termed porch kids, meaning they're living on the porch, and they're going from house to house to house just to find, just to have a place to stay out of the rain or cold or whatever it might be.
Yeah. We have, just to give a little bit of sense again, let's show another clip, because last year 356,000 meals were served. And there's a lady, Marlena, who did some of that serving the food. What about her? You're already laughing about this lady. Who is this lady?
Well, Marlena, up until about 3 years ago, was on the other side of the line. And she was in line with her family receiving food at Bosco.
Yeah.
And I believe this clip will reference that a bit. And now she's an employee. And she's, really worked hard. She has a great work ethic, a good skill set. We're working with her on a variety of different things.
Sure.
And, but she's a character. And
let's take a look at
You'll see.
Let's see for ourselves.
You'll
We're
see.
going to take your opinion. Let's take a look at what Marlena has to say.
Really, I didn't know too much about it. Like I said, through Sister Nancy, when she let me meet, she first brought me to Bosco. That's when me and my kids, my mama and my granddad, and when all of us started going to Bosco. Y'all don't have to pay for the food, it's free. I was like, is you sure? They were like, I'm sure you do not have to pay for it, it's free for anybody. It meant a lot to me. I remember one day, my brother came up here. He said, come up here. He said, Mary, I need to talk to you. She didn't have nobody to work. She was like, Marlena, could you please help me today? I said, yes, sure, I will. I volunteered for like 3 days. She said, Marlena, do you want to work? I said, yes, I need the job for me and my family. She said, fill this application out and you can start working. I broke down and I cried. My job is to cook, prepare meals for the people that come in, and some days I have to drive and deliver too. I like that. I love to mingle with people. I sit there and chat with my people. Some of them I hate to leave. And what really makes my day, when the people come in at 11:30 to eat. All of them come to the one. I be like, hey, my baby, how you doing? Oh, Marlena, what you got going on today? Nothing, just sitting here trying to make sure y'all eat. Like I tell people, come, it's free. Eat many times you want them. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you feel like you can hold it, eat it. We don't hold nothing back. The favorite on the menu when people come in. Woo, I know y'all got some good hot soup in there. But like, yeah, you know we got that. We don't have nothing else. When they come in, it just make their day. They'll be like, woo, may I have my soup with my dinner? Yes, you may, baby. They'll eat that and come to second. Come for second. That be the most important thing they come in for is they soup if they don't get nothing else. If it wasn't for Bosco and the Edmundite who help people, some of the people, the kids would not wake up hungry, starving. People would be dead, sick, especially for the old people. They made sure that they had food, clothes, socks, shoes, and a place to stay to keep warm. The missionary changed life for the better. If it wasn't from the Edmundite missionary and the Bosco Nutrition Center, I wouldn't know what people out here doing.
And this is the kind of folks that you're dealing with,
Right.
who are good folks,
Excellent.
know what they're doing, but I mean, you were the only job she could get
Right.
at this point. And,
Right.
and this, this is not an economy that is self-generating.
No.
You've got to, you can't be all service industry. You've got to have
Right.
something that feeds people.
Right.
And it's just not going on. So this is very necessary for the church
It
to be
is.
doing this kind of work.
And I agree. And the other thing that we take very seriously is that we offer just wages. And we believe in that so that folks can have a quality of life. And that's a real commitment that the missions has made to its employees,
Yeah.
which is
See,
critical.
Absolutely. Because, hope, I don't know, maybe there might be some viewer out there who says, you got that many people out of work, and I got an idea for a factory that needs to get built. But I hope somebody does that to revitalize
Right.
that part of Selma. But until then, the rest of us can take and give our part to help out.
And we'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
We do have wonderful donors. They range in age from 11 to 103.
Huh. That's a big range.
It's a big range.
Yeah, well,
And the younger ones are neat because the 11-year-old will write at Christmas, and she's collected money from her classmates by selling erasers and pencils. If you forgot your pencil, she'll charge you 10 cents for one. And then she saves up the money and says, here it is, I would like you to buy presents for the kids.
yeah.
And we have a young teenager that refurbishes motorcycles, sells them, and then gives a gift each month to the missions.
It's interesting. My kid brother customizes motorcycles for a living, and he and his biker buddies do that kind of stuff up in their state. They live up in Michigan, and there are a lot of folks that sometimes you think biker dudes, scary, but they're really generous folks doing
Yeah.
all kinds of good things, and I think this is where we can look for some creative ways.
Yeah, it's great.
to help that out. I might just have to get some of my hunting buddies
Come on down.
to come on down there and take care
You
of
can
some
be
of
at the
that
senior
pig
program,
population.
and yeah,
I know there are too many wild pigs down there.
lots of wild pigs.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I might have to do something to help out.
All right.
But see, that's where folks can do a lot of things to help each other out,
That's right.
and that's something that is very cool.
And prayer, lots of prayer,
Yeah,
lots of prayer.
you get to pray with the folks at the center.
Yes,
Oh, that's good.
yes.
That's good.
Every
'Cause
day.
That's, that's the other one of the other great things about the South. I mean, I was down at the convention center, and the lady was saying, I got this problem with my friends going to the hospital. So you just stop and
praying.
pray right there.
Yep.
And that's one of the great things. You don't, nobody thinks twice.
No.
Everybody just walk around. That's fine.
We pray each other up every day.
That's exactly what we got to
Yeah.
do. All right, we're going to come back in just a couple of minutes, and we want to get some of your comments and your questions, and we'll see what we can do and get also those of the folks here in the studio audience. So please stay with us. Thank you. Welcome back. First, I'd like to give you some information about the Edmundite missions. If you want to find out more about them, you can go to edmunditemissions.org. edmunditemissions.org, or you can call 1-888-540-7722. I'll read it again, 1-888-540-7722. And also, we want to invite you all to do something that if you get a chance to come here on pilgrimage, we'd love to have you contact our pilgrimage department, and they will be able to help you with all kinds of useful information. Their phone number is 205-271-2966. Or you can go to the website, EWTN.com. They'll give you the schedule of the masses each day, the programs where you can be in the audience, directions on how to get up to Hansville to see the sisters at the shrine, and also to information places to stay, good places to eat, some good food around here.
Food.
See that we have religiously themed restaurants here. We've got Hamburger Heaven.
There you go.
And we've got Golden Rule Barbecue.
There you go.
So that. Now, before we get to our first question, I want to ask, which St. Edmund are y'all named after?
St. Edmund of Canterbury.
Canterbury.
Yes.
And when did he live?
He lived around the same time as St. Francis and St. Dominic.
Okay. All right. So he was a Franciscan wannabe?
I don't know about that. I wouldn't dare guess on that one. I'll leave him to himself.
Okay. All right.
That's your department.
No, I mean, you work for the Edmundites, but yeah, it'd be interesting to find out more about him. How did they choose him as a patron?
It was actually during the French Revolution, and the Edmundites were held up in Mont Saint-Michel. And Edmund was, in fact, in a casket above the altar and above the baldacchino.
Okay.
And so they appropriated themselves to the care of St. Edmund.
Yeah, a lot of folks don't realize how dangerous it was for the clergy in France during the French Revolution. That's a good example of it. But it also got a lot of clergy to go out of France and become great missionaries.
And that's how they landed in Vermont. So
there you go. We have a question from our studio audience. Ma'am, where are you from?
We're from Houma, Louisiana.
We have a group of us that came
to visit the whole area and to visit the EWTN and the Most Blessed Sacrament as well.
Good.
So my question is tonight is the group of us are from south of New Orleans, and I would like to know, basically, you have the needs that are in New Orleans and the needs that are in Selma, and we would like to know, or I would like to know, what the different needs are for the areas because of the regions and the, we've had a hurricane in our area, and there's storms and different needs of the both areas. Are the needs, I know a lot of them are alike, but are there many different needs as well?
I think one of the greatest differences, and first of all, I'd like to say that Bishop Fobb, the Bishop of Houma Thibodeau, actually was a board member on the Edmundite Mission's Board of Directors.
Oh, yes.
And so he is very familiar, and so we send our greetings to him and Houma and to the Houma Thibodeau. I like to say, I'll say the Thibodeau part, it's easier. But one of the biggest differences is infrastructure. When you talk about a city like New Orleans and the poverty of the rural poverty is very, very different from urban poverty. And the remoteness and the lack of infrastructure, transportation, healthcare, services that most would find, housing, that folks would find in an urban area are not found as prevalent in the rural areas.
Okay.
So that would be.
So there's another kind of structure, though, as she mentioned, that in the hurricane, they do worse off because then that infrastructure can disappear
very quickly.
Whereas folks in the country can do better in those emergencies, but in the when the government is operative, then
Right.
you've got that kind of support on a greater level in New Orleans.
Ours is a day-to-day, it's day-to-day poverty. Nothing really changes, which is difficult. When you run into a hurricane or something, there's usually an infusion of cash that allows rebuilding, allows for some government funding and rebuilding or whatever the case may be. But when it's sort of perpetual poverty and perpetual crisis, you don't get those infusions of cash necessarily to help move a people in a city forward.
No, and even in a city like that, when you get that, from government agencies and private agencies, they help to rebuild, but again, it's like giving a kickstart to a motorcycle. Eventually, it's got to start the engine going and running on its own. And again, you just don't have anything economically to kickstart.
Right, and in New Orleans, just our mission or our ministry in New Orleans is a food pantry in the Tremaine area where St. Peter Claver Parish is.
And ma'am, you make sure you tell Mr. Ronnie hello about Mr. Ronnie's Donuts. Very famous in
Very
Houma.
famous.
Very famous in Houma. I have Charles on the line. Hello, Charles.
Hello.
Hi, where are you from?
I'm from Canton, Ohio.
Great. And what is your question or comment?
Well, I grew up in poverty in Mississippi in the Delta. And I know about, the rural area and no running water and what me and my family been through growing up. And sometimes when I moved up here in the city, Canton, Ohio, seeing the difference, and sometimes people don't understand what I'm talking about. But I thank God that I overcome some difficult poverty and getting my high school diploma and going to college and working. And I serve in the soup kitchen too. And serving people like Jesus want to be served. And encouraging people, don't give up. God cares for them and cares for each of us. And he wants us to be what Jesus wants us to be, by love, grace, and forgiveness and healing. I just encourage the brother to keep up the good work and don't give up. And the people, you're looking at the face of Jesus. And that's what I want to say.
Thank you so much, Charles. One of the points that he brings up, he grew up, there was no running water, no electricity. A lot of folks don't realize that even as late as 1960, only 20% of African Americans in Mississippi, and I imagine it wasn't too different in the Black Belt, only 20% had running water, indoor plumbing, or electricity. And that by 1970, 80% did. I mean, there was a great improvement, but more is needed.
Yes, more is needed. And we still today run into folks that can't afford the water bill, the light bill, and so they're turned off and they're living in dark. They don't have running water. They're getting water from a next door neighbor.
Or they're living on the porch, getting
they're living
the
on
hose.
the porch. So yeah, I mean, they might have pipes, but there's nothing running through them.
Yeah. We have a question from our studio audience. Young man, where are you from?
I'm from Pennsylvania.
Great to have you here. Thank you for coming. What is your question?
My question is, does any other organization waste any money, and how much is the money being wasted to that organization?
Okay, so how much money do you raise, and are there other organizations that help raise money? Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that question very much. We're about a $5.5 million a year organization with a 85 cents of every dollar going towards direct service. So that means a direct program cost, 15% for keeping the lights on, insurance, and those types of things. One of the interests,
and that's important.
It's huge. It's hugely important.
When you're giving to charity, you hear accusations that some charities only give 1%.
Yeah.
And the rest goes for costs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's problematic. But this is 85%
Yes.
gets directly to people.
Yes, yes. And what's really curious about the young man's question is, do other organizations raise money? One of the anomalies is the startup and shutdown of nonprofit organizations throughout the Black Belt and in Selma and the other areas that we serve that come and go. They come and go.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. And
Why is that?
I think part of it is finances. There is a real sense that it's a daunting task, what's happening in the areas that we serve. And I think that oftentimes people come in, like the man from Ohio said, Charles, I don't think people always understand what this poverty is. And so when you come with a very altruistic hope.
Right.
And when that gets dashed, it's very hard to persevere.
In other words, if your background is, say, a large city where there is an infrastructure and a widespread economy, diverse economy,
Right.
you have a lot of resources
Right.
to draw on, and then
Government
you
funding,
come to
yeah.
the Black Belt.
Right.
And
You expect that it's going to happen, and it doesn't work that way.
right.
That's one of the great parts about the missions. It's never given up, but it is only because that our donor base is throughout the United States,
Right.
and they're the ones that allow us to continue to operate 365 days a year. We serve 1,000 meals a day out of Bosco that are handed to somebody, and we deliver 300 meals to homebound elderly seniors.
So it's 1,300 meals
Yeah,
a day.
a day.
Yeah.
365 days a year.
We've got another clip
Okay.
that'll help sort of explain some of
Okay.
this, the need, how serious it is. So let's take a look at that clip.
Welcome to a place where the American dream is still just a dream. Welcome to the poverty crisis in the Deep South. A vicious, soul-consuming burden that is passed down from generation to generation. A repetitive daily struggle to provide the simplest and basic necessities for sustaining life. Where a family in poverty earns an average of $11,000 a year. Therefore, they consistently have to choose whether to pay the power bill or buy groceries, whether to seek medical help or feed their family. This is what defines rural poverty in the Deep South, where public transportation doesn't exist, jobs are scarce, consistent health care is difficult to obtain, and chronic diseases are double the national average. The high school dropout rate is above 60%, and the unemployment rate is staggering. This poverty creates a sense of hopelessness in the individual that breeds acceptance where there is no belief that an alternative future is viable. Among the poorest population of the Deep South, existence means merely surviving, with no means to build a brighter future.
Some of that, even saying that chronic diseases are twice the rate. And I know African Americans tend to be more prone to some heart disease, diabetes, and of course sickle cell anemia. So do you see that around a lot?
Yes, and obesity is also another huge issue.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, we have a lot.
High starch diet.
High starch diets because it's most of the time that's all that's affordable.
Right.
So
right. That's one of the things that, again, a lot of folks don't understand. You can't, if when you're hungry, you don't go buy kale. You want something that keeps. The Asians want rice, and folks in the West want potatoes or
Right.
something. But starch sort of stays there for a while anyway. and it removes the hunger for a
Right.
while.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's which adds to the obesity problem and to the diabetes problems.
Right.
Let's take another caller. Hello, Evie.
Yes,
Hi, where are you from?
Duluth, Georgia.
Good. Thank you for calling. And what is your question?
I was wondering how the work that the Edmundite missions do is different from the work of St. Vincent de Paul Society.
Oh, great question. Yeah, so St. Vincent de Paul Society is known nationwide, does a lot of great work. What would you see as the difference between them and what y'all are doing?
Well, we're there. We don't have a St. Vincent de Paul Society in Selma. And I'm not sure necessarily that it would be different because I think we're grounded in the same gospel message.
Right.
I think that what might make it a little bit different is our charism, the way in which we not only, part of it is not just dealing with the folks and the clients that come into and be with us, but how we work as a staff, how we come together, the environment that we create for the city. When you heard Rashid speak about the force that the Edmundite Missions is in the city of Selma, I don't think most organizations would be able to say that. And I think that's something that, while the work might not be different, I think the impact that we're able to have on the communities in which we serve is what makes us different from our perspective. It's just, but I'm not sure that the work would necessarily be all that different, when we're doing the work of Matthew 25.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I think a lot of times my sense is that St. Vincent de Paul Society, in my experience, has been in those larger urban areas where that larger support, so that a lot of parishes are contributing to help those parishes that are more poor. That worked with them in Nashville and other places.
Yeah.
Whereas y'all don't have the infrastructure that feeds into it.
Right.
So you're sort of in a little bit different situation.
Yeah, it's just a different situation.
But it's the same work.
Yeah.
We have another caller. Hello, Marianne. Marianne, are you there?
How are you?
Fine, thanks. And what's your question?
I have one quick question and one comment. My question is for your guest. I'm just curious to know how he became involved with the Edmundite charities and the mission. And just one comment I just wanted to say, there's a little plaque over the poor box in my church, and it says, "What you give to the poor is what you take with you when you die." And believe me, they're riches for you so much. Thank you so much for all the good work that you're doing, and God bless you always. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, explain it, Lucy. How did you get involved in this?
I got it. I actually was educated by the Fathers of St. Edmund at St. Michael's College in Vermont.
Okay.
So I've been associated with them since I was 17 years old. And I'm a little older now and a little grayer. But I've worked at several of their apostolates and have always been connected to the community. And I was actually working in a diocese when Father Richard Mahalik, the former executive director, called me and asked me if I would come down and help out a little bit. And he was one of my college professors, so I came down and spent some time, and he asked me if I would be willing to stay on, and I thought it was a tremendous blessing and a great way to live out the gospel message. So I was thrilled to be associated with them in this way.
You know, that in itself also speaks to that the various religious orders have schools and such. That was one of the big needs in the country when Catholics came. But those kind of connections don't just help us get an education, but they become a way for us to our graduates to keep coming back and serving Christ.
Yeah.
Not only in their families where they serve,
Right.
but also sometimes in the direct work.
Right. Right. It's been a huge blessing, and I mean, I couldn't be more grateful. And the other thing that's wonderful about the Edmundites is that they have always felt a great need and desire to partner with laity. And so that's been a real blessing, because the society itself has never been a large numbered order. Right. And so they've relied heavily and entrusted laity with significant roles within their ministries. And I am the first lay leader of the Edmundite missions. So it's been a real gift to me from them, and hopefully I'm able to give something back to them in thankfulness.
You're kind of enjoying this.
Oh,
then.
very much. I love it. Yeah.
You know, one other thing, we're getting close to the end of the show, but you know, it would be impossible to skip over that this is 50 years since the March for Voters' Rights.
That's correct.
From Selma to Montgomery, which is the state capital here in Alabama.
Yes.
And there was a big confrontation at that bridge. We saw pictures of earlier in the program on what was called Bloody Sunday. Mm-hmm. How has that been, you know, to be in Selma this past year? It's
been a whirlwind of activity with the whole influx of folks that came for the 50th anniversary weekend. You know, and one of the things that we say in the missions is that we were here in 37. We started in 37. We were here in 65 and tended to the wounded at Good Samaritan Hospital that was opened by the Edmundites, and tended to the wounded, and then we're there to the day after and continue to be there today. Right. And so it has been, to celebrate that 50 years has been monumental for the missions and its role.
And you know, also it's, apart from any policies, but it's amazing that the president who came for the 50th anniversary is himself African American.
Absolutely.
Celebrating that they were just trying to get to vote.
Right.
And it's just a remarkable thing.
Yeah.
We have another call. Hello, Kathy.
Yes.
Hi, where are you from?
I'm from Selma, Alabama.
Ain't that something? Do you know this lady?
I don't know.
All right. Kathy,
I'm about to find out.
What can we do for you in the last minute or two?
Well, I would like to make a comment. I just wanted to comment on the generosity and the giving and love that the fathers in the mission have for our community. We have a program that we help to provide free medication for those in need and free clinics during the month. And when we had a need to expand, Chad and the fathers heard of our need, and they provide us now the building, the facility, so that we can continue our work. Without them, we would never be able to have continued the way we are. So I just wanted to say thank you. They are wonderful partners in our community. I don't know what we would do without them.
Great. Well, thank you. That's a great comment and an endorsement from the community about what you've been saying.
Yeah.
And what an important part that is. I want to give that information again. It's EdmunditeMissions.org to find out more information about this work, or you can also call them at 1-888-540-7722. Now, are you going to have people at that phone tomorrow morning?
Yes, absolutely.
You better.
I will, I promise.
All right, make sure I don't want any crash. Don't want phones ringing. This isn't the IRS now. We want this to really work.
We'll get it done.
Oh, good. That's great. Well, this is great work, and all of us need to look for those opportunities that we can live out. Matthew 25:31-46. How we help the least of our brethren. That's how we're helping Jesus. Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing to do. Great. Thank you very much for coming all the way up from Selma. And I want to offer you all a blessing. May Almighty God bless you and keep you and cause His face to shine upon you. May He lead you in all of your ways by His peace. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. We can bring you this program and all the other shows that we do, but only because you make it possible. Your generosity helps you to be a Mary Magdalene, a missionary spreading the gospel by helping us to do so. So we certainly ask you especially in these summer months when a lot of you tend to go on vacation and such. Please remember to keep us in between your gas bill, your electric bill, and your cable bill, because our bill collectors don't forget. They will be here, so we need your help and support. God bless and thank you.